Welcome into the Inside Scoop. We are live from Nashville, Tennessee. Today is Sunday, August 24th, and the season is here. Folks, we made it. Let's talk recruiting. We're going to get into it. Before we do, if you've watched one of our Inside Scoop episodes this summer, then hit subscribe. It's time to lock in. The season is here. Recruiting's about to get crazy, so hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruits channel. All right, also, join Rivals today. It's the best time to do it. You can get a full year of access with the membership. You'll get access to The Athletic plus all the On3 national and fan site content. So you'll get everything from Pete Nakos, Chad Simmons, Steve Wiltfong, and all the fan sites. I'll put the link in the description of this video. All right, today on the show, we have a Florida focus. We're going to tap in with our Gator writer, Florida State, and Miami Hurricanes. It's going to be a big three bonanza. And then on the next show, we're going to focus on Clemson and Ohio State, who also both have big visit weekends coming up, but today has a Florida feel to it. Let's get into it. Let's get into some Friday night action. Here we have Diabell proving why he is a five-star. Down by 28 at the half, Diabell leads American Heritage back to beat St. Joe's Prep 31-28. Diabell had a couple fumbles in the first half. If you read Twitter, he's overrated. He's not the guy we think he is. But then in the second half, to come back down 28 points. Obviously, the defense had a lot to do with it as well. But Diabell proving why he is our number one quarterback. All right, also, Jared Curtis. He leads the way, 56-28. Nashville Christian just demolishes Davidson County. Look at this throw. Rusty, this isn't normal. I mean, the guy's got a bazooka on his shoulder. Just the pocket presence as well. Laser. There you go. 56-28. Jared Curtis rolls in week one. Let's watch some Darian Coleman highlights. Miami commitment. I've been saying he is going to be a fun one to watch this season. And he was a fun one to watch in this game as well. He put up big numbers. Two TDs through the air. You saw the rushing touchdown, leading his team to a big week one victory. We're going to see more big numbers from him this season. All right. BYU five-star commit Ryder Lyons threw for 5 touchdowns, over 400 yards in Folsom High School blowout in week one over Grant Union. I mean, I know Ryder Lyons is kind of taking a backseat a little bit to the other passers in this class because he's going to take that 1-year Mormon mission and he'll be a little bit delayed to his college career, but it's going to be fun. I mean, Ryder Lyons has swag to him. He can throw it. He can run it. I'm impressed. Big win here. Like I said, 5 touchdowns in week one for Ryder Lyons. Here he is just uncorking a long one. All right, four-star quarterback committed to the Gators, Will Griffin. He did something special this weekend. He's at Tampa Jesuit, and he not only passed UF great Tim Tebow on the state of Florida's career passing list, but he went over 10,000 career yards, got a big win, 33-14 over Bishop Verot down in Fort Myers. And we got a little, thanks to Keith Niebuhr, we got a little behind the scenes of Will Griffin addressing his team after this historic win.
Good job. You stay composed, line. Great job. Running backs, Hizzy, where you at? Where's Hizzy at? Stand up. Stand up. Hey, great job to the receivers, everybody. Let's stand up. Let's get a break. Here we go.
All right, let's talk a little Chris Henry Jr. Unbelievable weekend for him as he made his case to bump Tristan Keys from that number 1 wide receiver spot in America. Woo! Look at this. Chris Henry Jr., 81-yard touchdown. Now, he plays for Mater Dei, and they looked very much at home playing St. Thomas Aquinas down in South Florida. Dare I say, shades of Jeremiah Smith as Mater Dei dismantles St. Thomas Aquinas. 42-7, and Chris Henry Jr., really an understated, I mean, you see him giving up the OH for Ohio State, but for the most part, I mean, he just goes about his business. He is deadly out here. Nobody could cover him. These are some of the best, and Chris Henry Jr. made them look like Pop Warner players. Unbelievable. Like I said, 42-7, Mater Dei wins that one. Here we go. Alabama 5-star wide receiver Cedarian Morgan takes. This is why Bama loves this kid so much. Watch this. Maybe like a 4-yard catch. Well, boop, he's gone. He takes it upfield for 80 yards and a touchdown. Heck, he might be Tuscaloosa bound right now. I don't even know what direction he's running, but that might be in the direction of Tuscaloosa. All right, another wide receiver here. Bryson Wright continues to show us why he is a dude. I'm going to let you watch this right here, and I'm going to tell you something crazy. Let's see another angle from this one. The crazy thing I got to tell you about Bryson Wright is he's a 2028 wide receiver. Yes, 2028, meaning this is his first game as a sophomore in high school, and look at what he's doing. Unbelievable. I mean, the talent in Florida, it's off the charts. It always is. Mandarin wins 42-20. Let's take a look at number one running back Kamon Spell for the 2027 cycle. We know Charles Power is high on him, and Kamon Spell showed why he is a number one running back in the 2027 cycle. He rushed for 293 yards, totaling 5 touchdowns in the season opener. I think Charles Power has nailed this one for the 2027 class. Kamon Spell committed to Penn State. All right, let's get a little inside intel with all these big games and big matchups. We had a lot of rivals reporters on the ground, and I'm collecting some intel on the biggest names available. Now, Calvin Russell has been adamant about his recruitment being shut down after he pledged to Syracuse. However, he told our own Marcus Benjamin that there's a couple teams that aren't giving up. Michigan, Miami, and FSU continue to push for a flip, and despite him being adamant that it's shut down, he also confirmed he'll be at the Miami game when they host Notre Dame on Sunday. All right, Russell's teammate at Miami Northwestern, James J.J. Johnson, he's already flipped once, and Miami and UF remain in close contact. I expect him also to be at that Miami Notre Dame game, so that will be a big one. Another Miami Northwestern standout. This one is committed to FSU's. We're talking about Tadarius Hughes. Now, he's been committed to the Noles for about a year, but Colorado, Miami, Nebraska, and Syracuse remain in his recruitment. And I would consider that recruitment, despite a year-long commitment to FSU, I would consider it open. We saw 5-star wide receiver Chris Henry Jr. put on a show. Afterward, he told Marcus Benjamin that Oregon and Texas are still on him. I was a little surprised because he didn't mention Miami. Miami, I thought if there was any team at the moment that was going to land him from during his time when he committed to Ohio State, I thought Miami had a pretty good shot. But he says Oregon and Texas remain committed. Henry has one game day visit set right now, and that's to the Shoe, Ohio State versus Texas week 1. No intentions of visiting other schools. I would consider him rock solid right now to Ohio State. All right. Last topic I want to hit on is there's no more 5-stars. All the 5-stars are committed. We had 2 of them go down Thursday and Friday since our last show. Braylon Womack out of Mississippi, 5-star safety. He committed to Auburn. And then we saw Darius Gray, the final uncommitted 5-star. He chose South Carolina over LSU amongst others. And that is it. We can put the 5-star class to bed, right? I'm sure there's going to be no flips. We're going to not hear a peep from these guys now that they're all committed. All right. I'm just kidding. You guys tell me, comment section below, who do you think is going to be the first 5-star flip of the season? They're all committed. Who do you think is going to come off that commitment first? We know there's going to be a couple, but who will be first? Let me know, comment section below. Let's talk a little Miami recruiting. The visitor list, it's growing from Miami Notre Dame in prime time on Sunday night, and there's some major flip targets we're going to talk about in this video. But first, Miami fans, do me a favor. Jump on board, hit subscribe. These are fun times because the season is here. We're talking big visit weekends. All right, let's bring in Steven Wagner from Kane Sports. Steven, some major flip targets are confirming their reservation for the game, including running back Derek Cooper, who's committed to Texas, defensive lineman James J.J. Johnson, another Texas commitment. Wide receiver Calvin Russell has said that he's going to be there. So amongst these big-time names, who do you think this game is most important to when it comes to Kane's recruiting?
I definitely think it's going to have an impact on Miami's chances with Derek Cooper and James Johnson, either for the better or for the worse. With Derek Cooper, I mean, obviously, we've all heard about, the NIL side and, how he ended up at Texas and all of that kind of stuff. But Miami has been the school that I think has recruited him the hardest for the longest. And I think that if Miami can get off to a hot start and show him they are here to compete on a national stage the same way that Texas is, I definitely think that that could have a positive impact on the way that Cooper views Miami and potentially sway him a little bit back toward the Hurricanes. I also think that this game's going to have something of an impact on James Johnson, the other five-star defensive lineman, or the other five-star player that's committed to Texas from Miami Northwestern, number one defensive lineman in the class, and a huge priority for Miami. Him being at Miami Northwestern has only made him, I think, only made him a bigger priority for Miami because they dearly want to keep him here in South Florida. I think that he's a guy who kind of values, kind of the vibe around a program, what the energy is like around a program. And I think that if Miami is able to really make a statement with Notre Dame, I mean, that would just scream good vibes and good energy around the Hurricanes. And I think that that could have a positive impact with James Johnson. It wouldn't shock me at all if either or both of these guys end up making a trip back to Miami at some point later in the fall, although so far no future visit dates have been locked in.
Yeah, and I've been checking Kane Sport all weekend. It seems like every couple of hours you guys are confirming another big name to this visit list. So right now, who else is maybe up in the air? You haven't confirmed him yet, but you're still tracking these whereabouts.
Going to be very closely tracking Justice Fitzpatrick, the four-star cornerback committed to Georgia, can also play safety, and I think is a really good safety too. He is as high on Miami's board as any local prospect this fall. Hurricanes absolutely love him. Mario Cristobal recruited his older brother Minka to Alabama about a decade ago. He's maintained really close ties with the Fitzpatrick family, and now he's trying to do the exact same thing with Justice. Justice, I think, since Minka got traded back to the Miami Dolphins, I think that the Hurricanes have kind of been playing up this angle of, hey, now you can have everyone close to home. You've got Minka playing with the Dolphins, you've got Justice playing with the Hurricanes, and everyone's within a close drive of each other. Now, I do think that there is still a little bit of bias favoring the SEC, and I know that Justice has told me that he has a little bit of bias favoring the SEC just because he grew up watching Minka play SEC football, and he believes that's where the best football is played. But I also think that a window is very much going to be open for the Hurricanes to have a real chance with Justice this fall. I know Texas is also involved. I know Florida is also involved. Kind of up in the air whether or not he's actually going to make the trip to Miami for the Notre Dame game, but we are going to be watching that one very closely here over the next week.
Yeah, and I'll be watching Kane Sport very closely to see who the next big name confirmed is. Could be Justice Fitzpatrick, but there's also some big names from the 2027 and 2028 class. The 2028 class has been buzzing on this channel, and I recognize two big names that are going to be there. Wide receiver Bryson Wright, number one player at his position. Also, number one corner Amir Sears. We've already been talking about these guys. It's going to be another 2 years until they sign, but they're going to be at this game. How big is it to get players like this on campus so early?
I definitely think it matters a lot, especially for South Florida players. I think something that was kind of lacking pre-Mario Cristobal was these young players really feeling the enthusiasm and the love from Hurricane coaches and the excitement about potentially getting to Miami and feeling like they have a legitimate chance to go play at Miami. And so I think getting a guy down like Sears, who still is a local guy and has always viewed the Hurricanes in a positive light, I think getting him down to campus is still going to kind of move the needle a little bit for someone like him, because it shows him, hey, Miami values you. You are 2 years away from even being able to sign, but Miami still values you. You matter to this staff, you matter to this program, and the program wants to make an investment in young talent in South Florida, even if they're players who whose classes aren't going to be the focus of your recruiting right away. And I think even with a guy like Bryson Wright, the number one overall player in 2028, getting him down from Jacksonville is also going to matter, I think, pretty decent amount. Not totally for all of the same reasons as Amir Sears, since Amir Sears is a local guy, but it's still absolutely going to matter. So he feels like Miami's a place that wants him, that he's valued, because if Miami's not making this effort for a guy like Bryson Wright, someone else will.
Right.
And if the Hurricanes are going to have a chance with Bryson, I do think it's important that Miami gets on him very, very early.
Yeah, and this is why in a couple years when we start talking about Bryson Wright and, hey, Miami has a shot, because he's already been to campus 5 or 6 times before he even really starts his senior cycle. So getting these guys on campus, it's a big move. And you know, on Kane Sport, we see a lot of celebrating about this visit list growing, but I've been over on the Ohio State board, and it's kind of the opposite. You know, Ohio State plays Texas, big old matchup, but it's at noon on Saturday, and there's some complaints that, you know, hey, recruits are declining. Not that they don't want to be there, but you got a Friday night game. It's kind of hard to travel to Columbus for a noon kickoff. So have you noticed that this Sunday primetime game is really setting up to be a monster recruiting weekend for Miami?
Yeah, for everyone, it seems like, except number 1 overall prospect Jackson Cantwell, who whenever I talk to him, I think of probably around a month ago or so. And I asked him, hey, man, you know, you're the number 1 prospect in the class. You know, you're committed to Miami. You're rock solid. Are you going to get to the Notre Dame game? And he said, no, man, I've got school tomorrow. I can't miss class. I missed too many days of class back in the spring whenever I was taking all of these visits and figuring out I was going to go to Miami to begin with. But I do think that this being a Sunday game is definitely making it a little bit easier on some players' travel accommodations, because some players are actually planning on taking visits to schools on Saturday and then still be able to come to Miami on Sunday. Mark Matthews and Julius Jones, 2 really big priorities in the 2027 class over here at St. Thomas Aquinas and Fort Lauderdale, you know, 2 really big local priorities. They told me they're planning on traveling together to the Florida State game in Tallahassee against Alabama on Saturday. Then they're going to come back to South Florida either later that evening or early the next morning and be able to be in Miami for the Miami Notre Dame game. Ashari Charles, the 4-star edge committed to Miami, he's going to be taking a visit to Florida State for this game, or for the Alabama game as well. And he told me that right now, you know, he doesn't currently have plans to get to Miami for the Notre Dame game, but he said it's absolutely possible if his schedule ends up working. If his schedule ends up working out, so I do think that this game being a being a Sunday game is definitely going to allow, you know, a little bit more flexibility in some of these players' schedules, you know, because it's something that I've heard really consistently, you know, whenever Miami has had these big early games where they just stack a visitor list, is, you know, Miami's no longer having to battle other schools for, you know, recruits to come to these big marquee games. They can say, man, you can go to both. We're okay with you going to both. Just be here on Sunday. And I think a lot of recruits are very receptive to that.
Yep, and it's setting up to be a huge weekend. And if we know anything about South Florida recruiting and Florida recruiting in general, that probably about 50% of this visitor list isn't going to confirm until about 24 hours out. So whatever you guys have confirmed now, that list could double between now and game time. Exciting times. Go check out Kane Sports. Steven Wagner and the boys do a heck of a job. Steven, thanks for dropping by the Inside Scoop.
Thanks, Josh.
Little Florida Gator recruiting, because I want to know, if UF flips a 5-star this cycle, who will it be? Currently no 5-stars on that commit list, but I have a feeling by the end of this season there could be. We're going to talk more with Gators Online, Corey Bender. But first, Gator fans, season's here. Exciting times. Jump on board. Hit subscribe. We're going to be talking Gator recruiting all season long. All right, let's bring in the great Corey Bender from Gators Online. So, Corey, the question is there. If the Gators are to land a 5-star, it's probably going to be a flip, because right now, as it stands, Darius Gray was the last 5-star. He was an interior offensive lineman. He committed to South Carolina on Friday. So there's no uncommitted 5-stars. Corey, who could it be if they're going to flip one?
Yeah, Josh, I think right now, I think the name to focus on is Braylon Womack, who just committed to Auburn. He's this 5-star safety. And obviously, I think people will probably be like, why so early? Why mention him? He just committed to Auburn. Well, I think depending on how Auburn season goes and if Florida has a really good season. I think it's a guy that can maybe pry loose from the Tigers, just depending on how, with Hugh Freeze's job security, if that ends up becoming an issue depending on their season. But also Florida, last cycle they signed Lagonza Hayward, Hilton Stubbs. So I don't think safety is a major need. But, do you have Devin Jackson? Yeah, that's another one, former committee's committed to Oregon. But I think right now with him being locked in, I can see Florida kind of upping its pursuit even more. When it comes to kind of for Braylon Womack, I think, he loved Vinny Sunseri is probably one of his best relationships, maybe his best. And I think that obviously could play a big role. Even before he visited Florida early this year, Washington was in line to make his top 5, and that was all because of Vinny Sunseri. And although Florida came up short, they could have finished second in this race. They actually were buzzing a little bit down the stretch. And it kind of reminds me of maybe of a situation like it was with Lagonza Hayward last cycle. He was committed to Tennessee, took an OV to Florida over the summer. And although Florida didn't win out, they kept chipping away. And then eventually they were able to get him, in the fold late in the cycle. So I think overall, when you look at Braylon Womack, Florida's going to continue recruiting him. The relationship is very strong. And I know when it comes to revenue share and NIL, Florida can make a big push. So we're going to keep tabs on him throughout the season, depending on how Florida and Auburn both play.
Yeah, and, the Gators did a good job throughout the offseason of getting guys like Felix Ojo, Sadarian Morgan, Braylon Womack. There's a couple 5-stars that they have relationships with that are probably worth, just keeping an eye on if things can go right for the Gators this season. We'll see what happens. Reading Gators Online, you wrote a great article about kind of the season objectives for recruiting. I know recruiting, a lot of it gets done in the summer, but those important tweaks that happen during the season. So for you, what will kind of be the biggest recruiting questions for the Gators as we head into this season?
Yeah, Josh, I think interior defensive line, that's a big need for Florida. Kendall Gervil, he's committed. That's been their top target for almost over a year now. So they kind of have the crown jewel in the class, but Caleb Banks, who's supposed to be one of the best NFL prospects this year, he'll be gone after the upcoming season. Jamari Lyons has come off an injury. Makai Barrow, that's another interior defensive lineman. So after this year, it's going to be up in the air, a lot of proving to do along there. So they have Gervil in the class, but they want to land one more. They need another big-time defensive lineman to pair with him. James Johnson, the Texas commit, #1 defensive lineman in the country. That's a guy they really like a lot. They're hoping to get him on campus this fall. I'd be surprised if that doesn't happen. The interesting part of that recruitment is that's a big revenue share NIL recruitment, as we all know. Florida, from what we've been told, kind of paid up pretty well for Kendall Gervil to get him in the fold. So is Florida willing to kind of go the extra mile for another D lineman? I think they might. So I think that's another big thing. I think interior defensive line is the biggest one. And also, I think safety, we just kind of talked about with Braylon Womack. Are they going to sign a safety this cycle? Right. I think it's not the biggest need. How I've said that all along on Gators Online. I don't think it's the biggest need after them signing a great safety class last cycle. But, if they can't flip Braylon Womack or Devin Jackson, do they kind of expand the big board, or maybe do they go to the portal? They have a, it's funny because Jordan Castell, he's a junior. You have Bryce Thorne, who's a junior. Those are projected starters. They can technically come back. And then, like we just mentioned, the 2025 class had a great class. So will Florida maybe just pocket that scholarship and go elsewhere? So I think that's the other one. I think another one, too, is linebacker. Malik Morris is committed out of Lakeland. He's a big-time prospect. But Florida wants to sign 2 linebackers. Isaiah Williams, he just flipped to Florida State. Does he have another flip in him? Well, we'll see if that –
Don't discount
it. Yeah, so I know with that, he says his recruitment shut down, but I know Florida really likes him. He's a kid that ran a 4.42 at a camp I saw him at. He was at 10 in the morning in windbreaker pants, barely stretched, ran a 4.42. And I know even though after 6 commitments, most schools would kind of back away, but Florida really likes him. So will they sign a second linebacker? They want to sign 2. DQ Forkpa, that's another linebacker that they've been in pursuit of.
He had a great night on Friday, too. Big.
Yeah, he's up in Maryland now. Yeah, no, he's up in Maryland now, so I think maybe proximity, it's going to be hard getting to Gainesville again because he's not at IMG Academy. So Florida right now, they've hit on a lot of their positions. They've, got commitment. You have to keep them in the fold, obviously. But as far as offense, they're pretty much good to go. As far as offensive targets, they're pretty much done. So I think when you look at interior defensive line, safety, and linebacker, Florida wants to get one at each of those positions, and we'll see if Florida can do that. If not, obviously we have the portal in today's day and age of recruiting, so we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah. All right. So on this show, we've been talking a lot about the Canes' big visit weekend, Florida State's big visit weekend. So what will be the first big visit weekend in Gainesville?
Yeah, so it'll have to be the Texas game, October 4th, because, week one they play Long Island, so you're going to have some guys get on campus for that. You have USF after that, and then you have LSU and Miami back to back weeks, and then Texas weeks 5. So I think Texas, you look at the October 4th weekend, we already have a lot of guys confirmed for that. Jake Cruel, he's committed to Oklahoma. He has since said that he's locked in with the Sooners and not taking visits, but he previously mentioned visiting for that weekend potentially. I know you have the James Johnsons of the world and guys like that. It's going to be a huge weekend. I mean, if Florida obviously comes out of the Miami LSU games, back-to-back road games, and they're possibly sitting undefeated against many project Texas to be in the same boat, that will be one of the biggest college football recruiting weekends of the year. So all eyes are on October 4th. I think USF and Long Island, nothing against those programs. I'm sure Florida will have some guys on campus for those games. But, all eyes are set on the Longhorns and Gators October 4th. It'll be a night game inside the Swamp.
All right, well, that being said, it's kind of been a roller coaster of a ride for Florida Gator recruiting this summer, but they're ending on a high note. So, in your opinion, how many wins do the Gators need for us to see recruiting really get red hot in November and December?
Yeah, Josh, I think probably 9 games. I'm going to go with that. I mean, even this year, people are saying it's, again, the toughest schedule in college football. They said the same thing last year.
Yeah.
It's good. If they win 9 games, it's pretty impressive because, like I mentioned, they have LSU and Miami back-to-back road games early in the year. Mm-hmm. That, to me, is going to determine the season. What kind of Florida Gators team are they going to have? If they go to LSU for the first road game and, they don't play well, I think that could kill the momentum of the program, as far as with Napier and stuff like that. But I think if you can come out of this year, especially playing Texas at home, you have so many big games. I think 9 games is definitely realistic to really have recruiting reach another level because even if you look last cycle, I mean, Josh, you and I have been doing this for a long time, and the way Florida finished last cycle was very impressive. I haven't seen that, in a long time, how red hot they were in November, and that wasn't even 9 wins. Yeah, I mean, they finished well, but it wasn't at 9. So I think overall, Florida can finish with 9 wins. DJ Lagway plays well and lives up to the hype, which I think that's the biggest question too. There's so many expectations for him. It's almost unrealistic, in my opinion. Is he going to reach those? Maybe he does. But if you get 9 wins and obviously DJ Lagway performs, I think obviously the sky's the limit for Florida.
Yeah, I mean 9 wins. That means DJ Lagway is performing because with that schedule, the only way to come out with 9 wins is for a monster season by DJ Lagway. And if all that happens, I agree with you. I think the Gators are going to be one of the teams that is just out there flipping big-time names down the stretch. Gator fans, talk to Corey Bender and I. Put a number in the chat. How many wins do you think this Gator team has in them between 1 in how many games have they played these days? 12, 13? I don't know. Drop the number in the chat below. Let us know, Gator fans. How are the Gators going to do this season? Let's talk some Florida State recruiting because FSU is expected to have close to 100 top recruits on campus this Saturday. Bama versus FSU. Doak's going to be rocking, so let's break it all down. But first, FSU fans, do me a favor. Exciting times. Jump on board. Hit subscribe. We're going to be talking Noles recruiting all season long. All right. Let's bring in Mike Langston from War Chant. Now, some interesting names I want to talk about, just a couple, because there's going to be so many. War Chant has an ongoing list. But, Mike, we thought official visit season was over. We thought June was official visit season, but there's a big one coming to campus. Edge Ashari Charles, who's committed to rival Miami, is expected to be in Tallahassee for an official visit. How did this one come about?
Yeah, FSU had the longest standing relationship from the beginning. I think it was one of his first offers, if not the first offer. So the relationship was really good. Obviously, he's heard a lot. His buddy, Chucky Kennan, who's a 5-star cornerback from Sarasota Booker, has been working on him. And they just kind of kept developing a relationship. And then as people have heard throughout the summer, FSU's got pretty hot. That people are intrigued about what this team looks like. I think FSU is probably one of the most engaging teams because you don't know what's going to happen or what they're going to look like. But when they're good, and recruits want to be a part of it. And I think that has signaled the thing. And then 2, the way they use their edge guys already based on what they do in practice or just the spring in general, I think that's really captivated Ashari going along with the relationship they had there. So that's one that's probably their number one guy as far as the guy they want to flip. But overall, I think he's one they want to push for. And the
Hmm.
fact that they got him in there the first weekend
Yeah.
they're playing against FSU and Alabama, I think speaks volumes to me.
Let's talk about another flip target. Running back Jay Lamar. He committed right here on this channel to Georgia. Florida State was a hat on the table. And, he's kind of said that his recruitment isn't over. So where does Florida State stand? Is this a big visit getting him on campus so early?
Yeah, it's very big, and he's even said I might take multiple visits there depending on how it goes. And his only other visit was when Georgia plays Auburn, which was interesting to me that he wasn't really thinking about their visits, but it's also his comments when I went down the Moultrie, Georgia. I didn't know what he was going to say. I went over there, we talked, and then he went in depth, and he was very adamant. His words kind of stuck to me because this is a guy that's committed to Georgia. All intents and purposes, it sounds like he's comfortable with Georgia, but he raved about FSU like he's like, I think they're going to beat Alabama. He's like, I think they're going to beat them. Like I was like, why do you think that, Jay? And Jay's like, because I was around the practice. I know the way these guys work. It's a different hunger that I've seen with FSU. He likes the coaching staff. He likes kind of the mix with Gus Malzahn. And he's like, I think they're going to be different. So to me, that was very telling from a recruit, not an a FSU commit, from a recruit that's not even committed to FSU, that they had that kind of high view of FSU. So I think, yes, that visit is certainly impactful. He's one of those, among others, whether it's FSU
Hmm.
commit or a target, that visit or how they play and how the production is on the field is going to impact, through the recruiting throughout the year. I mean, he's a guy that I think could impact. You say you go in there and you upset Alabama. I think it's going to have a significant impact on him because he was very clear, like, I want to see wins. I
Yeah.
want to see a difference. And I think he feels like there's going to be a difference, but I think with a lot with just like with a lot of other recruits, they want to see the product match what they're watching in practice and the hunger. They want to see all that stuff equal because you got to beat somebody eventually if you're going to move the needle and you're going to show growth with your
Yeah.
program, especially after last year. There has to be something you can put your finger on, and that's why I've said all along they need to win one of those early games with either Miami or Alabama. Both of them are at Doak, brand new Doak, by the way, renovated and everything. Everything's exciting. Got a football league facility, so I think they really need to capture the momentum. I think they really need to win one of those games.
Yeah, you're right. Hope and excitement in Mike Norvell's sixth season has kind of wore off. The only thing that's going to bring that kind of excitement back around the program is win. So, that being said, I want to talk about another important target on campus, and that's at a major position of need. Linebacker DQ Forkba is expected to make it in, and he was going to make a decision last month, and all signs pointed to the Florida Gators, but he held off. So this kind of gives Michigan, Florida State, the other two teams heavily in his recruitment, a chance to get back in. DQ Forkba this weekend, if he makes it in, how big is this?
Oh, it's massive because that's his first visit. He's already said he wants to see these teams play. Transferred, I think, from IMG Academy to St. Francis in
Mm-hmm.
Maryland. I think that's kind of interesting, considering Michigan's in the picture. But I think overall, just getting him on campus because early on, FSU was the clear leader. I mean, he almost committed on one of his visits. But I think it's kind of the same thing I've kind of reiterated through this interview was he needs to see the product and the growth of the product and even more so see the way these linebackers are going to be used under this new Tony White defense because Tony White's a former linebacker coach himself. So he
Mm-hmm.
wants to see kind of, hey, are they going to blitz? Are they going to how they going to use these guys and just how their production level is and also the development. I've highlighted that really high that's something I think FSU needs to show throughout the year at various positions of let's see the development. We saw offensive line play really poor last few years. Now, can they turn that around, especially even at linebacker with JP switching to the linebacker coach? So I think really it's a massive visit for them because we know the energy is going to be there. It's Alabama's in town, the crowd's going to be crazy, electric, but what do they do on the field as far as from a product that moves the needle with him? I think that's going to be a big key in that visit. And if they do that, I think they're certainly going to be a major threat. And I'll be honest, like I hear more about Michigan and Florida State than I have Florida, which is the team that I think rumored that he was going to. If he was going to make a commitment at that
Right.
time, I think it probably would have been Florida. Not counting out Florida, I'm just saying I've heard more about those two teams.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I thought that he was ready to make that. Heck, he was going to actually announce with our channel. His agent hit me up that morning and said, hey, he's not ready. And I said, that's fine. Whenever he's ready, we'll be here. So it sounds like it could happen during the season. You guys have a lot of big names confirmed for 2027. Go check out War Chant, but there's one that's bigger than the rest. That's number 1 quarterback, Kavian Bryant out of the state of Texas. How big is it that he's going to show up in Tallahassee for week 1?
It's big because he's the 2027. He could go anywhere. Ohio State's playing Texas.
Yeah.
Texas is considered a favorite in his recruitment. You would think, even though it's at the shoe, that he might want to go over there and just check them out in a big game. But he chose FSU, and like I said, this is a relationship that is developed. Tony Tokarz has done a really good job throughout their recruitment. Adding Gus Malzahn is certainly a big plus. I think he wants to see kind of what this offense looks like under Thomas when you're running everything. Thomas is a guy that does some similar things to what Kavian does, and FSU doesn't really have a per se top target for 2027. They do lead for Logan Flaherty, a 3-star quarterback in state, but overall they don't really have one that you just stands out. So yeah, it's a massive visit to get your foot in the door and kind of set the first kind of lay down the foundation of what schools have to match as far as what FSU can show in that game. So it's a major opportunity to have one of the top quarterbacks in the country for 2027, and who knows, you might make a move and you might be able to, if everything clicks and goes well, might stand out alone by yourself. So I don't know. I think Texas is probably the overwhelming favorite, but overall, I think it's a tremendous opportunity. And I think it's very interesting for me when I look at these visitors and the ones that we've confirmed that some of them are taking their first visit to this FSU Alabama game when there's a lot of games that they could go to that are national matchups. But it kind of speaks to what I've been saying all along, where they're one of the most engaging teams. Some people either watch because they hate them, or there's some people that watch because they like them, or they're interested to see is this an FSU that we saw in 2013 or 2023, or is this going to be more of the same where it's a bunch of inconsistency that but I think that it's a very engaging team this year because a lot of people, even our beat probably, doesn't know what we're going to see totally when we start the season, but you do feel a different confidence of the coordinators that you have in place now. So I think everyone is excited to see that from a recruit standpoint of how this is going to look throughout the whole year.
All right. Well, that being said, then let's just get right down to it. How many wins do you think Florida State needs for this team to be red hot down the stretch in recruiting?
Well, I already said, they need to win one of those in Miami and Alabama. I think that's vital for them to really execute their plan. So I'd say 8 or 9 for me to really move the needle. Because if you're winning 8 or 9, that probably means you beat one of those teams, to get to that point. But I think it's essential, not just the win total, but who you beat. I think that matters. You have to beat one of your rivals. You got 4 big games where you got Clemson, Alabama, Florida, and Miami. So you need to win one of those. And if you win 2, it gets kind of weird. It might get kind of weird where you're talking now 9 or 10. So I think 8 or 9 for me is the one where that's going to really start to see a transition of, okay, we believe in what they're doing. Now we're seeing some evidence. I think there needs to be evidence to what they're doing to change.
Yeah, I fully agree. All right, going to be a big week on War Chant. Huge already expected visitor list, only going to grow. Updates daily. Mike Langston, thanks for dropping by the Inside Scoop.
You got it.